And it's now officially time to start our quiz. Welcome, everyone. This is a mobile quiz for mobile history and some stories about the mobile world, mobile technologies, mobile phones, operation systems, and so on. It consists of 25 questions, as you see, and it's provided the quiz process itself will be going in the Mentimeter. And to join the quiz, please go to www.menti.com and enter the code you see, I believe, somewhere on top there. It's 13 10 28 5. This is going to be fun. It has pretty cool questions from different varieties, different areas of mobile expertise. And there will be two winners that will receive very, very good and great and exciting prizes. So please join and have fun. Let's speak about myself first. I'm Raman Butok. I worked with EPAM for about 10 years, and I'm with Mobile World for about, I don't know, 7 years, probably even more. If I mean working with mobile area, working with mobile phones. So I know some things about mobile history and mobile phones and mobile operating systems. I worked with Apple, I work with Android, I'm an Android developer currently, but no worries. This quiz is not about development, it's not about like difficult technical things. It's about your history knowledge. Even if you don't know, just join, have fun, and I'll probably answer the questions you don't know. I hope it's gonna be really fun and cool. What are the flow of this quiz? We're gonna have about 2 minutes for each question. You can vote, you can pick the right answer onto menti.com. I already mentioned that, so join if you haven't joined yet. Join menti.com, enter this code, and there, when we start our quiz, you're gonna see questions when I started. So you can pick the right answer, and if you answer it faster than other people, you're gonna score more points, so be quick, that's important too. And after the quiz is over, you will see the leaderboard, which will show our winners, and two of those winners will receive, as I mentioned, great prizes. I see a couple people already joined, so that's cool. I hope I'll wait a couple more minutes to probably more people joining our quiz, and then I'll start. What I have by the topics that I cover in this quiz. First of all, we'll discuss history, how it's all started, what was in the beginning, how different operation systems started, and so on. And then we'll discuss hardware a little bit. What are the mobile phones? What is responsible for what? And things like that. And in the end, we'll cover some like random questions if we have time. There are, as I said, 25 questions here, 2 minutes per each. It's probably gonna take longer than I expected. So if I don't cover all the questions I have, no worries. We'll still figure out who is leader and who is the winner of our quiz. During the time the timer is going, those 2 minutes per question, I'm gonna cover some history insights, what I know, what I remember from the like mobile phone, mobile operation systems history, and so on. And I even probably can slip some answer to the question while I speak. So listen carefully. It's not just history, it's knowing new things. And I'll probably give some, I don't know, hints to the questions I ask in this quiz. So I hope it's gonna be fun. Let's wait a couple more minutes. I see already 13 people joined. That's pretty great. And out of this 13 people, 2 people will receive great gifts because those people will be winners. Whoever takes top two places, they gonna win some great, awesome prizes. Um, why I decided to join this quiz and prepare those questions? Mobile phones are pretty major part of our world currently, and everyone has a phone, and we spend with our phones a lot of time, and we store a lot of data there. So knowing how it's all started and how it was, I don't know, even like 5, 10 years ago, it was different. It was not the same as we have now. So it's just fascinating to know how in short period of time, pretty much like 20 years, it is all has changed, and we have so many different varieties, so many different operation systems, and how many others died, how many opportunities has changed. So I think we have some people we are currently here. So I think it's time to start. Let's move on with the first question. So prepare your phones, take a look at the screen, and the first question is, how much did the first ever portable mobile phone cost? You see the picture of the phone on the screen currently, and I forgot to change the timer for this question, so we have only 15 seconds answer now. That's a shame on my end, but no worries. That's not that's not a big trouble. I'll speak a little bit about this phone. It was a Motorola Dynatec 8000X, and it was a pretty expensive phone. It came out in 1989. No, it came out in 1983, and it was the first portable phone. It connected to the CDMA network. It wasn't like worldwide or anything. It was a, if you had this phone, you would show up that you have some extensive amount of money, because $4,000 in 1983 was a lot. And in 1989, they followed up with the next version, Dynatec 9800X. So it was smaller. It was like not that popular, I would say. So those still are iconic phones of late 80s and beginning of the 90s. That's part of the history. That's from what all our mobile phones has started. So let's move on to the next question. Next question is, I hope I changed the timer here, but I think I did. What was the name and the year of the first Apple smart device? If you think that iPhone was the first ever Apple's portable device, that's not really true. They did came up with the PDA some time ago. It was pretty long time ago, and they tried to make it popular by like recognizing hand-drawn text and having a screen, but this device was expensive, and the handwritten text recognition didn't work perfectly well, so it wasn't that popular. Apple was known, already made its name with their personal computers, and it was a known company with like respectable company, but they always wanted to innovate. They wanted to introduce something new. So they came up with this device. This device was chunky. It was pretty big. It had a pen. Later, as you know, Steve Jobs said that pen is not the way to go with mobile phones. So yeah, whoever answered Apple Newton 1993, you are right. It's an Apple Newton device. They had it was, I wouldn't say it was a device itself that called Apple Newton. They introduced the platform, and there were a couple more devices, but this exact device, it was called Apple Newton. It came out in 1993. So it didn't gain a lot of popularity because of issues that I already mentioned. So yeah, it was the first Apple's smart device. From what they started later, they probably got some inspiration for their later devices from this first device. If you just join in our quiz, you still have time to join by the link on www.menti.com and enter this code. You still have a chance at just the third question, and you're definitely gonna win some prizes if you join right now. Let's move on with the third question. And third question is, what company created the first mobile phone with a color display? This is also part of the history. Don't look at the 28 number. I just forgot to. I was rearranging questions, and some of those I just got this. So there were a couple companies that were making mobile phones. I don't have Motorola here, but it definitely not Motorola. But some companies like Nokia and Siemens and Alcatel and Apple, they're making their phones for quite some time now. And before like the first colored screen came out, most of the phones were not colored at all. They had monochrome liquid crystal screens that were able to display probably several shades of gray, but nothing much, nothing more than several shades of gray. And with this phone also wasn't like crazily colorful with 16 million screens or whatever. It supported only like 4 colors, but it was a progress. And liquid crystal technology, as we know it now, wasn't as advanced 10, 20 years ago. 10 years ago it probably was already, but 20 years ago it wasn't. And OLED wasn't even a thing, because like creating different colored LEDs is a difficult chemical process. So most of the screens use just liquid crystals that could turn on while you put electricity into them, and like turn off and provide like some shades of gray and nothing more. But this phone was the beginning of an era of colorful displays. So that's a big thing. Showing colorful images and later showing pictures, like watching videos in full color. That was a thing that probably changed the whole mobile industry. And yes, it was a Siemens. Siemens was a huge mobile phone company at some point. They probably missed the race when they didn't jump the train with the smart devices or develop their own operating system. They were trying to stick with their feature phones, as you would say, running J2ME platform, and it just wasn't enough at a time. So now we don't see any Siemens mobile phones at all, and that's a shame, I would say. And that's a first leaderboard. We have a couple people going, like, taking first places. People who are joining later, you still have time to join us and probably beat the fastest person who is on top of the list. And let's move on to the fourth question. I have leaderboards throughout the entire process, so you'll probably see a couple more leaderboards throughout the questions, throughout the quiz, so enjoy. And I hope you continue joining by the link on top. I don't know my position on the hopping, because I see myself differently probably than you see, but that doesn't matter. And fourth question. The whole competition in the modern era of mobile operating systems came down to just iOS and Android, and we don't have anything else, frankly. So, but that was not a thing even in 2007, I'd say. There were a bunch of them, and years later, it was a lot more of different operating systems. So if you can name at least one in this question, you can pick only one answer, but not only one answer is correct. So you can pick any that you think is correct. It will be counted as a correct answer, but there is more than one that is correct here. Mobile operating systems, they went through a, like, I would say, difficult history of growing in popularity and losing popularity. It all came down to like most known companies that make those operating systems, and the easiest way to adapt those operating systems into their devices. For example, Android. You can pretty much build your own Android from the source and put it into whatever you want. So some of the operating systems were hard to license. Some of them were hard to develop applications for. They didn't have app stores. They didn't have features that people like. And at this point, they all lost popularity to the point that you can't find any modern device on those systems. And yes, really good examples of those is Windows Mobile. Microsoft tried to jump the train of mobile phones and mobile operating systems for a long time, but they lost the race and they discontinued Windows Mobile and Windows Phone completely. And BlackBerry OS, at some point, BlackBerry was one of the most protected operating system in the world. A lot of businessmen, a lot of financial organizations used BlackBerry because of an encrypted mail, encrypted messaging, and it was pretty popular, especially in enterprise and in business. But it lost its popularity because of Android and iOS, who gained pretty much all those encryption features, but offered more. It's not just this. And one of the other examples is probably Symbian. Uh, Nokia tried to popularize Symbian for a long time, but it didn't win the race, and we don't have Nokia anymore. Nokia makes phones now, but it's not the same Nokia that we had before. It is owned by some Chinese brand, and it's just the name shield on it. It's not the Finland Nokia that we had. And let's move on to the next question. Question 5 out of 25. And the question is, we are so used to all the modern smart devices, like big screen taking almost all the front panel. And what year was first iPhone released? Answer now, you probably know that that's an easy one. Steve Jobs himself, he introduced this phone and he came on stage, and it was awesome, I would say. It didn't have like all the functionality of some of the smartphones or PDAs that were on the market at the time, but the stylish look of this phone, the metal body and the screen and later updates, it was something that Apple was able to sell people by a lot. And it was beginning of a huge era of smart devices with big screens and no necessity to use stylus or pen or anything. You could use your fingers and it worked great. And some of the multi-touch functionality like pinch to zoom or like two finger scrolls or whatever. I would say it's all started with the first. This is an amazing device that probably, like a lot of Apple devices, it didn't help that well, like for longevity and so on. But it was still pretty decent device, and Apple just started it. And yes, it was introduced in 2007. It was you won't believe it. It was just 13 years ago. It was not that long ago. Before that, we didn't have like a lot of full screen, no keyboard, no stylus phones. So let's move on to the next question. Next question, also related to the Apple ecosystem and iPhones. What iPhone had App Store pre-installed? First iPhone, I'll tell you that. First iPhone definitely didn't have App Store pre-installed, and you can mark out the first option in this question already. So App Store wasn't a thing for the first iPhone. Only later, sometime later, at some of the later iPhones, they decided that it's a good thing to allow developers to make their own apps. First of all, Steve Jobs thought that it would be a good idea to provide Safari browser on the iOS devices and only have developers to create web content for that. But then later, after some discussions, I should probably read his biography, but I didn't. So I know what I know, and I'll tell some things that I know or assume. So after discussions with probably developers or people in his team, he changed his mind, and App Store was introduced. And it was introduced in the second iPhone, which was called iPhone 3G, which is completely confusing, but it is what it is. It was later updated back, how's it called? Retrospectively updated to the first iPhone 2 with the system update. So first iPhone eventually did have an app store, but not in the beginning. So I was muted by moderator. What's going on? I'm sorry, I do have some technical issues. I hope you can hear me now. Because yeah, I hope you hear me. That's great. That's great. Yeah, as I said, the first iPhone that had an App Store was iPhone 3G. And yeah, addition of an App Store changed the world. And having an App Store that has like over 1 billion apps right now, it's amazing. You can pick whatever you want, like video reductors and things like that. That that's pretty good. Let's move on to the next question. I just started reading chat, so sorry about that. I see that I don't see. Oh yeah, JavaOS. Yeah, I promise I will read questions. So if you have any questions or any discussion in the chat, I'll be reading chat right now. I switched to the chat. I'm a bit I'm better at like reading chat and trying to discuss all this. So if you have things to ask or things to tell, I'll promise I'll try to read them moving forward. So let's move on to the next question. And there is a device based on iOS that doesn't support phone calls, and it's not an iPad. What is this device? I know we know Apple as a manufacturer of iPhones, and apart from iPhones, Apple makes a lot of portable devices too. And one of those portable devices doesn't have cellular data in it. Uh, What's the point of it? I will not tell you because it will probably be a huge hint for the answer. But it's a good device. It's a pretty cheap one, and it has pretty much all the functionality, and even the chipset is the same or last gen from the current top iPhone. So it is a good device. The only downside of it has probably a little bit smaller battery, and it doesn't have a cellular functionality. Um, so this is the thing, and it also got a lot of updates for iOS. And I know that for QA, it is used as a testing device, also like as a pretty much not that expensive, but having all the chipset and functionality as an iPhone. So yeah, it is a good device. I'm glad that some people voted for the iPhone and the first thing iPhone 2G Novelty Edition. Those are good names, and iPod Touch is the right answer. It was a pretty much musical player with extended functionality. It extended the iPod lineup of Apple. They had a lot of musical players. It had the good audio chipset. Overall, iPhones have pretty good audio, so iPod Touch was one of those. And the next question is probably related to the previous one, depending on what this. Yeah. I'm gonna not give you any hints, but there was such a thing as paid iOS upgrade. And Apple decided that that iOS updates have to be free for everyone, but some of them weren't, and you had to pay $10 per update for a couple of updates to the latest iOS. There were some limitations, not everyone had to pay, and even like for the first update, you could go, the link was, some people got those links and you could just sideload the update, and it was pretty easy to do. But anyway, there was such a thing as a paid iOS update. A lot of people were frustrated because of that, and it wasn't the most popular solution. So later on, Apple decided that they won't move forward with the paid iOS updates, and all devices since then started getting only free updates. But on iOS 3, to update from iOS 1 to iOS 3 and from iOS 2 and from iOS 2 to iOS 3 on the iPod Touch, you had to pay $10. It was a weird decision. Apple was criticized a lot. Even if you Google paid iOS updates, you can find articles from 2007 by some of the bigger tech journalists and magazines that criticize Apple a lot for the paid updates. But yeah, that was a thing. Imagine you'd have to pay $10 to update to it. If you check Wikipedia, as far as I remember, there was I am probably mistaken. It was an iPhone OS 3, third major release of the iOS operating system developed by Apple, succeeding iPhone. Look at this. No, not like this. You see my screen, right? I have proofs. It was iPhone. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I should have called it correctly. So sorry about that. It's basically iOS 3, but it was an iPhone 3. Yeah, you're right. My bad. I'll fix the quiz, and for the next people who I present this quiz with, I'll have all the mistakes corrected and things like that. So sorry about that. And let's move on with the next question. And this question is, what is the company that created Android? I know the answer is probably obvious, but it's not. Android operating system was first intended as a smart home PDA device that they did. Oh, not even that, like smart camera device. Later on, by looking at the iPhone success and success of the mobile devices overall, they decided to switch their focus from smart cameras and they decided to port their development to the mobile phones. And yeah, one of the companies listed here was the company that created Android. There were a couple people, and so the first device came out later, so they tried to develop some sorry, I've got distracted a little bit by my house. So what I'm saying is Android grew up from the team of about 4 people to the biggest smartphone operating system in the world. And you have to pay respect to that. And this is huge comparing, like, Apple did it by making small range of devices and making them reliable, making them stylish, making them pretty expensive but popular, and it's an icon. And Android is affordable and thing that you should that you can buy for pretty cheap, like even $100. In India, you could buy a phone for like $15, which is crazy. But yeah, it's all started from the Android Incorporated, which was later acquired by Google. And yeah, that's changed a lot. If you just join in the session, I see 23 people here right now, and I see only 15 people playing. So if you want to join, it's not that late. You can still join. Somewhere on the screen, there is a menti.com, and use the code to join our quiz. It's gonna be someone gonna win pretty huge prizes. Next question is about Android 2. What inspired Android code names? Every Android has some code name. It's fun that we can, apart from having numbers like iOS, iPhone OS 2, iPhone OS 3, and iOS 14, we can have some like pretty catchy names that you can remember, memorize, and have fun with. And even put some statue in front of your company headquarters and have some people taking pictures with those and like guessing the what's gonna be the next code name for this, and like providing 3-letter shorter code names. So Android team decided to have those code names for pretty much each Android version. Who decided first that this is going to be a code name? No one knows. History doesn't tell us that, and all the interviews with people that I found on the internet, they said it was just like a team decision, and no one knows exactly why it started. And yeah, it's basically just a thing that is easier to memorize and easier to have fun. Android, every time from the very beginning, Android was like, operating system for people and having fun, having all these statues and not being like all polished, all that nice, having some like rough and funny things and Easter eggs. It's more of an Android way. So these code names probably were a part of a spirit of Android. I'm also making this stuff up, so don't listen to me. Just try to remember what inspired Android code names. It's probably the easiest question of a quiz, but who knows? It's definitely the desserts. They started doing those desserts alphabetically, and at some point they stopped. Probably Android was more polished, or they ran out of ideas what to have those how to name those newer versions. So yeah, we had some of the dessert versions starting from like earlier Android versions and up to the later on. Why I'm not saying what's the latest one that had a dessert name, because there will be a question about that. So the next question, I hope you enjoy the next question. And which one of those desserts never appeared as an Android code name? There were a bunch of them actually, but like from the list you see here, there definitely are some. There definitely is some of the like bacon item dessert that was never, but not bacon item, but like dessert sweet. Uh, I keep thinking that they had like cupcake, they had eclair. I'm giving up answers. Sorry about that. But you should definitely guess what was never a code name for Android. Um, for every code name that they used, they tried to get a statue in the Android lawn in front of a headquarters. You can actually go to California and see all the statues for all the Android code names. It looks pretty cool. I haven't been there, but I've seen a lot of pictures. Probably at some point I'll go there. I visited California once, but it was like nature trip. So I want to visit Google headquarters and see those statues myself. I'm an Android developer. I enjoy looking at the Android mascots, and yeah, so as I said, code names were inspired by desserts, and it was a fun thing to do, and a lot of Easter eggs that Android had were related to those desserts, or like having some things that you can like go into settings, tap into OS version a bunch of times and see, I don't know, lollipop or jelly beans jumping on the screen. It was a fun thing that Android should have probably continued, but as I said, at some point they stopped because they didn't have probably enough ideas together. Yeah, Bagel was not the one that inspired one of the code names. There were no Android that started with B at all. And strangely enough, they did have some of the code names based on the brand names, like collaboration with KitKat or collaboration with Oreo. That was also pretty fun. I don't know what was the deal with that, especially like money wise, who knows? But it was still fun. And the next question is, uh, what was the last version of Android that didn't have? No, what was the first version of Android that didn't have a sweet name? Up to some point, all of the Android versions did have sweet code names, but this version was the first that was named Android number. They started doing the same thing as iOS is doing, and it's probably easier for them to not come up and like alphabet is going to an end, and coming up with newer and newer sweets and desserts each year was becoming harder and harder. They, for example, for KitKat, the code letter for this was KLP, as far as I remember. And people on Reddit, people on some forums were like guessing what it's gonna be. It's probably gonna be key lime pie or something like this, and that was KitKat. But yeah, just moving forward by the letters, it's probably really, really difficult to come up with a good name for the dessert. Like something for Z, I don't know. It's like it's hard to get a dessert name with starting with the letter Z. So yeah, Android team probably decided that it's now looks better and it's easier to just name Android versions as numbers only. And yes, it was Android 10. Even the statue in the statue garden just depicts number 10 with Android head somewhere. And Android logo itself is pretty fun. It was designed by one of the designers, and the task she was got it was a like design an android, a robot, and she decided to do like a bug, so it's an android with antennas, like a bug. So yeah, it's pretty fun and cool. And let's move on to the next question 13 out of 25. And yeah, zucchini is a good one, but it's not a sweet. I thought zebra, but zebra is not a sweet. So what was the first android phone on sale? uh I tried to carefully Photoshop out the logos from this phone, so you should probably guess what that phone was. It wasn't a good phone. I'm telling you that. It lacked even a headphone jack. At the point, it's now a time when we don't have headphone jacks and it's fine. But at the time when this phone was introduced, headphone jacks were a necessity. And this phone only had it had keyboard, it had not very responsive screen. It wasn't that fun anyway, and it was sold only by one courier in United States. And it's, yeah, as I said, it's not a very, very good phone. And it's an HTC Dream, that's right. It had a different name. It had a name T-Mobile G1. It was sold by T-Mobile, and it had a slider QWERTY keyboard, and it had Android 1.0. It didn't have Play Market, so they probably did the same mistake as an Apple when they released iPhone. So yeah, it was an HTC Dream. Good job, everyone. You're doing really good progress. We'll probably see Leaderboard pretty much soon. Next question is, now we have like cool gesture navigation. And with gesture navigation, it's easier to navigate phone, but there were much more buttons on the phone screen. And what's like the pretty popular button that was on a lot of early Android phones that you cannot find anywhere on the modern phones, especially with gesture navigation. It's like only home and back. So you see home and back on the screen here, but there are two buttons actually that you can pick here, probably. But the other button is still present to some extent. That's a great question. I'm just like I'm moderating my own questions right now, so I can get a good amount of criticizing of my questions right now that I see all the mistakes that I did. But it's anyway, I hope you enjoy the questions that you have here. So Android phones, they changed. No, not yeah. So Android phones, they changed a lot throughout the years, and they added some buttons, they changed buttons. Android operating systems had at least two big redesigns, and it's a platform that is evolving, that is starting to become more mature, more polished, and um, changing and removing buttons, removing jacks, removing some features or adding new features is definitely a good part of evolution of a always changing and moving product. And I'd say it's pretty good that we currently have what we have right now, but it's not what was in the beginning. And yeah, search and menu are two correct answers. So good job, everyone. You can, speaking of the menu button, it was present for longer than search button. Search button is not there for much longer period of time. Menu button was still used in, I'd say, like probably even Samsung Galaxy S5 still had a menu button, but with some update, you could switch it for multitasking button. So menu button definitely lived longer, and it was used to get the context menu or action bar menu on Android. And some apps in the beginning didn't have an action bar menu, so you had to press menu button. I did have an Android 2.3 device, 2.2 even, and a lot of applications to get to options, you had to press the menu button. And search button, it disappeared pretty quickly. A lot of people decided that Google search is probably not the most used thing in Android ecosystem anyway. Question 15 of 25. I should probably start speaking less and start talking less and have more questions because we are running out of time. What IDE was used as an official IDE for Android developers, Android development before Android Studio? That's a technical question. I don't have a lot of technical questions. It's more probably familiar to Android developers here in chat, but currently, Google decided to proceed with IntelliJ IDEA-based Android Studio, which is developed and Google themselves, they help JetBrains to develop this product, and it's updated frequently with cool developer features, profiling, and things like that. But before it, we didn't have Android Studio. We had a different tool that we had to configure ourselves, and it wasn't as sleek, and it wasn't developed by Google themselves. They only developed plugin for it to support Android development. So it wasn't as easy and as fun to develop earlier. It was different, I'd say. I don't want to say that it wasn't fun. It was fun anyway. Being an Android developer is fun. But Android Studio is much more versatile. It has better auto completion things, and yes, and it was Eclipse. It was officially supported by Google. They developed official plugin for Eclipse. It's called ADT plugin, Android Development Tool plugin. You could use IntelliJ IDEA before Android Studio came out, but it wasn't an official and recommended way for doing things. So yeah, Eclipse was the thing before, and it's definitely not an Xcode. Borland Development Studio is a thing. You can develop Delphi in it and C++, but it's definitely wasn't used for Android development. And the next question that I have here is, what year marked the official Kotlin support for Android? It is also a more of a tech question. So before that, all the apps were written in Java. we are not talking about native components like accessing hardware or GPU levels. It's C++. But later on, Google decided that having this language will help Android development to be more up to date, because updating Java to the latest version and having a lot of court rules, and it was sued by Oracle for using Java for the longest period of time. And I'm not even sure that uh, this the Oracle withdraw the case. They still probably have an open case with Oracle for like misusing Java Sans product. Before it was Sans product, now it's Oracle's product, of in a commercial operating system without paying all the latest. Recommended language, I'd say that. And it was 2017. Um, so I probably have to adjust the wording in this question better. I now understand what's the problem with it, because first it was supported, and then later on they said that it's not just officially supported, but it's a recommended way to develop apps on Android. So um, I'm a little bit worried now that I mixed up the dates in my head. So I apologize for that. Most of the people answered correctly. If I did mistake in it, I apologize for that. Um, I promise you that I look it up later, and I'll try to adjust questions that I didn't do correctly. So look at that. We definitely do have a couple people that are leading our board now. And now let's move on to the hardware questions. It's not like really difficult hardware questions. It's uh, some things related to the not just software and operating systems, but to the hardware. And what was the first ever smartphone that supported 5G? As you know, it's 5G stands for generations of mobile networks. We started with the GSM, which was pretty much first generation, and then it got updated. Oh wow, I forgot to adjust time here too. And it was Samsung Galaxy S10 5G. That's right. It was sold in Korea only, and it was the first phone that you could actually buy somewhere in the world that supported 5G. The first phone in the United States that supported 5G was Moto Z. As far as I remember, the phone that you could buy attachments to the back. There is like attachment you can slap to the back, and this attachment supported 5G frequencies, but it wasn't like the first smartphone that supported. And there is also Nokia 8.3. If you just Google this, it probably the phone that came up in your Google search. So it's the first phone that supports like global 5G with more frequencies. And Galaxy S20 is the first smartphone that sells globally and supports just limited amount of frequencies for 5G. So yeah. 5G is a pretty relatively new technology that is still developing, and we will see much more different 5G phones in the future. So, next question is, what device is responsible for tracking phone orientation? Uh, it's probably also not the perfect question because it has some disambiguations. So, but based on the options here, you could probably guess what the device is. Um, Starting from, I believe, from pretty much very first phone, it was the accelerometer that was built in that supported tracking phone. And if you like rotate it in landscape mode, the screen will rotate. In portrait mode, it will rotate, and it supported like some games with accelerometer support and so on. So yeah, it's definitely is accelerometer. And next question is, how much RAM was in the first iPhone? It was year 2007. It definitely wasn't a like 6 gigs of RAM as you can find in, I don't know, latest iPhones, or like 8 gigs of RAM you can find in Samsung Galaxy S20 to hold all your Chrome tabs and all your 10 Chrome tabs in your operating in your RAM. But before that, it was no one thought that you would need that amount of memory, and it was pretty expensive to get flash, to get RAM installed. So first iPhone definitely didn't have that much memory. Yes, it had only 128 megabytes on board. Things have improved since then, but you still, on modern phones, you still probably shouldn't hold tons of opened Chrome tabs anyway. That's what I wanted to say. It's about disambiguations. It's not only accelerometer, because it tracks acceleration and even rotation. About the orientation is more of a gyroscope. Yes. So I know my mistakes. I know my things. I'll try to fix them. I apologize for all the things that you see here. I hope that they don't ruin completely the impression of this quiz. The next question is, what screen technology in first iPhone changed the smartphone industry? It wasn't probably the first phone that supported that, but it popularized, as a lot of things that Apple does. They don't really um, invent things. They adopt things. They make things popular. And this technology was one of the things that popularized this technology by a lot. Previous phones did have, previous popular phones, they didn't have like this screen technology. It wasn't as, I would say first iPhone wasn't as like, precise when you tap on things on a screen. But this technology was, it felt more natural than the previous one. For previous one, it was hard to tap with your finger. You had to use pen. And with the wide adoption of capacitive touch screens where you can use your finger, because it the way it works, it like calculates the currents between like corners, and your finger is a capacitor, as a capacitor, and you're touching the screen. You don't have to press, because on resistive screens previously there were two thin films and you had to press them to have a connection. With capacitive screen, it's different. It's more natural. It's in modern phones, it's even more precise and supports multi-touch. You can put all your 10 fingers and your phone will recognize it. And it was popularized by Apple too. So we are running out of time, but we don't have a lot of questions left. So if you answer them quick, it's gonna end up sooner. What is the CPU architecture name for the most modern mobile devices? I know that a lot of mobile devices, I know that throughout the mobile history, CPU architecture was changed a lot. So now it is the most, it's probably not the best way to say it, that it's the CPU architecture. It's more of a commission that approves set of instructions and your architectures, but it's a like huge subset of CPU architectures that is widely used. Even Apple Silicon, Apple M1 for their notebooks is based on this architecture, and it is an ARM. That's right. MIPS also was used in some phones, and even Intel tried to jump on the train, and they had Intel Atom in a couple of their phones, but it's not longer supported. So ARM is the way to go if you want to develop your mobile phone right now. And the next question is, who is the greatest manufacturer? I forgot to press enter. Who is the greatest manufacturer of modern Android chips of pretty much all of the high-end Android smartphones are based either on this chip or manufacturer like OEM developer, like Huawei. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Huawei. They make their own. They try to make their own chips, but they still utilize this manufacturer. Or Samsung. They do have their own chips, but are they greatest? That's the question. And also a lot of other companies that just trying to like enter the smartphone world and create a flagship or like middle range or budget phone. They utilize chips from this manufacturer. And yeah, throughout the years there were like bunch of different Texas Instruments did their chips at some point, but this manufacturer proved to be like the most versatile, the most flexible, adopting new technologies like 5G, adding more like reducing their tech process to like lower, making it more energy efficient and supporting newer like they were the first who did x64 ARM 64. I mean, it's not x64, it's ARM 64 chips. And yeah, they keep doing a great job. And ARM by itself is used in mobile phones more because the subset of instructions is smaller than in usual x86 chips you can find in your PCs or laptops. And it's more energy efficient. They don't have to carry all the legacy associated with Intel, for example, chips. So that's why we use ARM. It's more energy efficient. It wakes up better. And the Qualcomm makes the most of the modern smartphone chips. We definitely don't have a lot of time left. So let's take a quick peek at the leaderboard now and see if anything changed. Race is getting close. Couple people more, and we have couple more questions. Let's move on. Some random questions not associated with hardware or history. It's just gonna be fun. I hope you enjoyed those questions too. We have only three questions left. What is the share of iOS and Android users that updated to the latest Android version, iOS 14 and Android 11? Those operation systems, they came out not that long ago. But I'll tell you some of the history and you decide what to do with this history and how to answer this question. iOS users tend to update their phones much faster based on the share compared to the Android users. So I don't know if it's affected this release because this release was really, really recent. So probably it has changed. So let's see what's the answer. And they'll probably move to the leaderboard because we definitely don't have any time left. And I'll just show you what questions I had. Android always had this problem with diversity, and we do have to support a lot of Android operation systems. Google tries to reduce this diversity by introducing different projects, like splitting the system image on parts and like having system kernel installed on one partition, and you can update user space with a different partition, and you can just like add newer Android version, but not updates in system drivers or system kernel. It helps to some extent, and Android 10 was one of the fastest by adoption of the Android operating systems, but it wasn't the fast. So what is the adoption now? I hope you know the answer, and it would be the last question for today. I'll show what I had later, and we'll see what's going on here. So yes, it's 46% for iOS and less than 1% on Android. It doesn't even show up on Android dashboard, and that's a shame, I'd say. The next question is, I can show you. Okay, let's see the leaderboard now. And based on the leaderboard, we see that Maxwell and Dennis, you are the leaders of this quiz. So please, 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 I ask you, leave your emails, leave your contact information. You can contact some organizers. You can write it somewhere. Please leave your information after the session ends. You deserve the prize. And the other person that I see on this, I'll probably look it up later, but the person, I'd say, can I scroll? So what's the leaderboard? That's the leaderboard. Let's say Jarek, who took the last place on the chart, as a prize for the last place, also leave your contact information. You're gonna get a prize too. Thank you so much for joining my little quiz. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was at least a little fun and you learned probably something new. And I hope you spent a great time. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'm Roman. If you have any questions, you can write me directly. You can send me DMs, or you can look up my information somewhere, or like use my EPAM email. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you.